The Clippers made some major moves this offseason in quest to their first finals appearance and championship. Last season, they bounced out in the first round in 7 games to the Denver Nuggets and now are on the quest to their 15th straight winning record season, which is 4th in NBA history. But let's talk about these major moves they have made because they are one of the older teams, but I like the fit overall.
Before I get into this roster breakdown, I want to establish just one thing. And that is, this team will only go as far as Kawhi Leonard will take them. And that corresponds with every championship-winning team. It did with the OKC Thunder. They went as far as... It did with the Denver Nuggets. And they went as far as Nikola Jokic took them. Only anomaly I have is the Boston Celtics because they went as far as Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown took them. But for the Clippers team, they will go as far as Kawhi Leonard will take them.
But yeah, and that's the big question for this team is going to be the health, right? And then obviously egos as well because they added some big name type players during this offseason. The first major move they made though was trading away Norman Powell in a 3-team trade that by Norman Powell to the Miami Heat. Utah Jazz then sent John Collins to the LA Clippers. Norman Powell had a shout for All-Star last year, a shout for MIP last year. He was due for a big payday, and the Clippers believed he does not deserve the payday he might get from another team, right? Which is fair. Like I have nothing against that, right? Because at the end of the day, that was Norman Powell's first All-Star caliber type year. Otherwise, he's just been a normal role player in every stop he has had. But that brings in John Collins to their power forward position. I like the fit in a sense that it's a solid lob threat for James Harden. And James Harden at this point is now the bona fide point guard. He's no longer required to be the scorer. He will be needed, don't get me wrong, but his first priority is going to be that lead ball handler to make plays for other guys. And what's one thing that James Harden does when he has the ball in his hand? Find really good lob threats. Zubac feasted this year for that reason, but you got a more of an athletic build in John Collins, joining a guy like Derrick Jones Jr., who was athletic for these guys last year defensively as well.
You also added size, which is also huge because when you're going against the likes of Denver Nuggets, you're going to need some size to guard Nikola Jokic. And it was clear that Ivica Zubac couldn't do him by himself. So adding in a guy like John Collins adds a little bit more height to the lineup, which I like. Only issue is, like you said, Norman Powell brought the scoring. John Collins is not going to bring that. But they did counteract that with getting Bradley Beal, who the Suns bought out for his no-trade clause because they couldn't find a trade partner. But when you're looking at it, if you have Kawhi Leonard healthy, he should be the leading scorer. And Bradley Beal, if he is anything like the Washington Wizards' Bradley Beal, he will be a great scorer. And the best part for Bradley Beal is he doesn't have to worry about defense or ball handling because you have James Harden for that. And then you have Kawhi Leonard and John Collins for the defense.
Well, John Collins is not great defensively. I'm going to make that clear. They deviled down starting lineup-wise defensively, in my opinion. Norman Powell is slightly better. John Collins was a good defender in that one conference finals run where he got his big payday. After that, he was not the same John Collins.
That's the last time to be fair, that's the last time I saw John Collins.
I don't blame you because the Utah Jazz have not been good after he got moved, right? Because he didn't get moved for much to the Utah Jazz either.
No, he didn't.
So John Collins is looking for a fresh start, he's now in a winning setting, and we've seen what happens to players that go from a losing setting to a winning setting. Andrew Wiggins was a big guy who leveled up his game because people thought he was not a great defensive player in Minnesota, but when Golden State won his championship, obviously outside of Steph Curry, he was the biggest reason why, because he was the guy defending Jason Tatum and one of Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown with Draymond Green taking the other responsibility. So like defensively, John Collins needs to prove himself, right? So like obviously we'll talk about the lineups in a second because there are 11 players deep. John Collins in that sense, like this is his prove it year and it's a good spot for him. Motivated team in general because in my opinion the Clippers should have won the series last year because now the Nuggets have gotten better as well. But going back to your Bradley Beal point now, Bradley Beal on the contract that he currently is can somewhat be a steal, right? I don't think he's gonna be a Washington Wizard type player, Bradley Beal, but I still think he's a good basketball player. Is he an upgrade over Norman Powell compared to last year? No, Norman Powell was way better than him last year. Bradley Beal was injured. Obviously the drama, Phoenix alone was just a drama in general. We talked about that during the Kevin Durant trade video we dropped. But Bradley Beal, as of right now, Hoops Hype has him at the starting lineup position, and we'll discuss that in a second. You still have some, as long as he's healthy, you have a scoring punch, right? Bradley Beal thrived under Russell Westbrook too, right? James Harden is a similar level playmaker as Russell Westbrook, in my opinion, on the point guard's position. So it's not like, so these guys, Bradley Beal can get going. This Clippers team can be scary, right? It is a big question mark because the last couple of years of Bradley Beal haven't been the greatest we've seen him in a while.
That is right now. That is my biggest concern for the LA Clippers. That is who's going to be the second or third scorer. Norman Powell's gone. James Harden's primary role is now facilitating and playmaking. Obviously, you have Kawhi Leonard, but he has health concerns. And that is why Bradley Beal needs to step up for this team to actually have success. The reason for that is because we've seen so many times where if the star player is going but nobody else is, the points don't come offensively. We saw that with the OKC Thunder. Shea got going, gets his 30 points, but there were games where J-Dub and Chet didn't show up. The OKC Thunder propelled when J-Dub showed up. So who's going to show up secondary or even the third option if James Harden is doing his job scoring-wise? But who's going to help Kawhi Leonard offensively and getting buckets? And that's going to be Bradley Beal, in my opinion.
Yeah, to make it clear, we're not, obviously Zubac is going to get his points, but we're talking about more of a shot-creating type guy.
Yeah, and that's the second option, right?
And that's Bradley Beal. So at the moment, I guess to round up the offseason, move quickly before we talk about the overall lineup now. They were also, after the Norman Powell trade, like you said, they brought in Bradley Beal. They went out and got Brook Lopez as their backup center position, which is a solid, who last played for the Bucks. And a reuniting of Chris Paul, arguably your franchise greatest player. Chris Paul is probably playing his last NBA year. It makes sense that he's coming back home to the Clippers. That helps your backup point guard position, in my opinion, because I don't think he should be starting. And the way they were able to get this all done is because James Harden took somewhat of a hometown discount for all these moves to happen. Otherwise, it was not going to be possible, right? Especially first, not even including Chris Paul, because he's obviously here for a different deal, but getting in Bradley Beal and Brook Lopez, that's big. So overall, in my opinion, they're 11 players deep. According to Hoops Hype, their starting lineup is James Harden, Bradley Beal, Kawhi Leonard, John Collins, Ivica Zubac. Off the bench is Chris Paul, Chris Dunn, Bogdan Bogdanovic, Nicholas Batum, Brook Lopez, Batum, who they also brought back, and Derek Jones Jr.
So obviously, when you're looking at the second unit, that is much better defensively than it is the first unit. Yeah. But the first unit provides more of the offensive punch with Bradley Beal starting. So the question for me becomes, do you want a microwave, heat wave type player coming off the bench, like how Bradley Beal could be that guy coming off the bench? Or do you just want that in the starter position and that kind of balance it out? Well, not really balance it out or go out all out offense in the starting. Or do you want to balance it out by having some sort of defense by starting Chris Dunn and having a scorcher coming off the bench in Bradley Beal?
They have options, right? So your first option is, like you said, Bradley Beal comes off, plays with Chris Paul off the bench. Who knows if Chris Paul's even going to get minutes? I hope he does, though, because it's his last NBA year.
Yeah, I hope he does.
I still think he's able to play. He played 82 games last year with the Spurs. Chris Dunn obviously started a lot of the year this year as the shooting guard. Mainly more so the defensive side of things. The shooting is questionable, but the defensive side was there. Your other option might be put John Collins off the bench. You could start Nick Batum. I don't think that's going to happen. Or you could go smaller, slide Kawhi down to the power forward position. Bradley Beal could stay there, and then you could put Chris Dunn in the small forward, or Derek Jones Jr. could start as well. They have options, though. But the one thing, what you said, though, is they have everything, right? Zubac himself almost had an MIP year. He was in the defensive, I don't know if he actually ended up getting all defensive team, but he was in conversation of Depoy as well. Obviously not to the elite levels of guys like Draymond and Dyson Daniels in them, and then having Brook Lopez off the bench as well, who Brook Lopez rebounding might not be the greatest, but stretch floor ability, can still set hard screens. Yeah, block shots in general. Yes, they're older. These guys are if health and egos aside, essentially, if they are there, and Kawhi, who I believe still plays at a high level when he's playing, these guys are in conversations of beating the Houston Rockets, the OKC Thunder, and the Denver Nuggets, who I believe are the only three teams I could comfortably say can be ahead of them.
Right now, their biggest obstacle is erasing the Clipper name and the curse now, I would say. Obviously, health is one, don't get me wrong, but as a joke, the Clipper curse is I guess real because, like you said, they're a pretty well run organization. They have had many winning regular seasons. They've made the playoffs many times, right, in a row. When's the last time we saw the Clippers really be bad in the regular season? I can't really remember.
No, the only time they missed the playoffs was like a couple of years ago when they missed it through the play-in.
Yeah,
That's it,
exactly right. So it's not like they're like at the bottom.
But even like even the
Right.
Shea rookie year, which Shea wasn't the prominent guy, it was more, I guess you could say, Lou Will and Montrezl Harrell year.
They made
the play.
Yeah, they're competitive. They're always a competitive team. They're never out of it by like halfway through this.
And this is with Doc Rivers coaching them for a little bit too.
So like the Clippers are well run. The Clippers are a good team. The Clippers are a good franchise. They just haven't been a franchise to get the job done, which is obviously what everyone is looking at, right? When and where will this playoff success come from? And right now, that's the main question for the LA Clippers. And last year's playoff exit, like you said, they should have got the job done against the Denver Nuggets, and I 100% agree with that. But as year after year, I always say this, on paper, I always have the Clippers as one of my perennial contenders.
Yeah.
Because like you said, the fit is there, right? They have the good two-way stars. They have the superstar. They have the coaching, which we didn't mention right now.
Yeah.
They do have the coaching, but for some reason, they just can't get it done. And to me, right now, it's either they just have the Clipper curse, or the other big issue was obviously health when Kawhi Leonard missed many playoff games for them.
Yeah, so before we talk about are they legit contenders or not, make sure you guys hit the subscribe button. As you can tell, this is a basketball channel that we revamped. Make sure you guys comment down below what you guys think about this Clipper team. Hit the like button and share, hit the subscribe button. We'll be dropping content like this the rest of the summer before the regular season officially kicks in. But going back to it then, the contendership, like talking about this roster, right? The biggest concern outside of the health and ego is going to be the age. They're going to be like, oh, slower legs, whatever the case may be. But am I crazy to say that, like, because of the, like, not just because of the fit, like we've seen teams go out and get players, name brand players, and it doesn't work out. And this Clipper team by far could be one of those teams. I'm not going to fall for the trap of like I did with the Phoenix Suns when Bradley Beal joined them with Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. We're like, oh, they're going to easily go to the finals. No, this fit is definitely better. But like when you look at the Lakers when they made that old roster, there were a lot of question marks in general, right? Like fit-wise, but Russell Westbrook, LeBron, Anthony Davis, right? Then you can bring in guys like Trevor Ariza, Carmelo Anthony, Kent Bazemore. Like these guys are old guys, but they weren't good at this level of some of these Clipper teams. This Clipper team, in my opinion, and that Laker team also had a lot of question marks. Like, what do you think of this? These guys are way too old to compete against the young guns like the Rockets minus KD and the OKC Thunder, for example.
Health, that's the main concern. And the players, they like James Harden dealt with his fair share of injuries. Kawhi Leonard, we already know that. Chris Paul, last year was his first year where he actually played a full
Ever since he joined OKC, essentially, he's been relatively healthy.
Yeah, and then Bradley Beal, we knew in his Washington Wizards days, dealt with his fair share of injuries. Him and John Wall, him being the shooting guard and obviously the backcourt duo there, they've dealt with their injuries. So when I'm looking at it, that's my main concern. Can, on court for 48 minutes, can they keep up with any team in basketball? 100%. Can they keep up with any team in basketball for 82 games and a playoff run? That's where the concern is, because that's where these old legs can wear out, leading to injuries. And that's the only issue I have. Otherwise, when I'm looking at skill, talent, these guys have all the talent and ability to match OKC Thunder, the Denver Nuggets, and the Houston Rockets.
Yeah, the fit's there, the lineup adjustments are there, right? Again, you could go defensive lineups. Like how you go 2K, you have the option of 3-point lineup, defense lineup, blah, blah, blah. They have that. It's not like, oh, they go defense lineup and you have to throw in a guy, like a bench guy in, like a rookie guy, and that's strictly there for defense or whatever the case may be. But before we end it off here, so I agree with you. We agree that this Clipper team, as long as they're healthy and the egos don't get out of the way, this story will be insane. I'll say that much, because Kawhi joins the team he was supposed to lead the Clipper team. That's part one of the storyline. James Harden could get his first ring. Chris Paul can go on top and win his first ring as well. Bradley Beal can shut the haters up. You know, the story, like Zubac is like just come up in general, and so on and so forth. Brook Lopez, who I know has a ring already, but I'm just saying in general. But here I'm gonna give you some teams and just tell me how confident you are that they could beat this team in a 7-game series come playoff time, and we'll assume that they're relatively healthy. All right?
Yeah.
First up, OKC Thunder.
No.
How many games?
It's going to be deep. No matter what team you say to me, it's going to be a deep series. That is 100% for sure. But it's going to be the OKC Thunder still.
Yeah, I agree with that. But will you be surprised if the Clippers can beat the OKC Thunder in a 7-game series?
I'll be slightly surprised.
Okay, next up, Denver Nuggets. Upgraded Denver Nuggets team.
I like the Nuggets. The Nuggets beat them last year.
And they got better.
the Clippers at the end of
Also
the day,
got better, to be fair.
I would say, yeah, slightly got better, but you could say it's like their improvement, their jump is not as big as the Denver Nuggets is. So I would say the Denver Nuggets.
Still like 7-gamer, you could say.
Yeah, deep series.
Yeah.
Like
The Houston Rockets. That one is now both teams are on paper matchup in a way. But Houston did add a big scoring punch and Kevin Durant. And they added another guy in DFS off their bench.
And obviously for these two teams,
Yeah.
like there's no real evidence you could go off from the last couple postseason runs. But right now, I am liking the look of the Houston Rockets just a little bit more. And for that reason, I'm going with the Houston Rockets just because they answered their biggest need, which was getting that scoring punch.
So you still have them 4.
Yes.
But at the moment, I'm assuming you have the Clippers head of almost everybody else, right? The Lakers,
Yes.
the Mavericks, the Warriors.
So I have them
all that.
4, essentially, in the West.
Okay. So but is that enough for you to say that they are, to close it out now, to wrap it all up? You see the roster. We discussed the breakdown. We saw their competition, the coaching and all that. Are they legit contenders for you this upcoming season? Title contenders.
Yes, but there is one caveat. If I'm looking at title contenders in the NBA, the first 4 or 5 for me comes from the Western Conference.
Yeah.
If the Clippers were in the East, then obviously because
They're
of that,
final favorites.
yeah, they're literally final favorites. So if I'm looking across the NBA, yes, they are title contenders. But if I'm looking at it in terms of conference breakdown, I won't put them in the title contender tier. I'll put them just below, just because the competition they have to face is going to be it's gonna take a long road. And like you said, you guys are old.
Health.
That's gonna eat away at your bodies. And it's gonna be a long physical road just to make it to the NBA Finals.
For me, I still think they're title contenders at the end of the day. I see them competing against all 3 of these teams in general. I won't be surprised if they were able to beat these guys. Listen, the parity in this league is nuts. Like since 2018 is when we had a different champion every single year. Why not these guys outside of the curse? I get that, all that stuff, and the age factor. But let's see how T. Lue uses his lineup. He has the depth now, right? In my opinion, you added the scoring, right? You have the leadership, you have playmaking. So we'll see how this ends up going. But overall, this Clipper team is set. Legit, they're ready, they're healthy. I will not be surprised they're title contenders. As much as I hate to say it as a Laker fan, you got to give respect to what this team has done, and we'll see what this Clipper team does below. A video is popping up on the screen right now. If you're interested, like we mentioned, hit the subscribe button, and NBA content dropping for you guys weekly, and we'll catch you guys on the next one.
Peace.